Welcome to our 7th LAMP Lite byte. In this LAMP Lite byte, we're going to take on a form of active learning called action learning. And I've squarely situated this form of active learning in the blue wavelengths. It typifies the fact that when integrated in a really creative way, it takes quite a bit of energy on the part of the learning coaches, which is what we're calling these instructors in this case, as well as the students. As we look at our spectrum, here's action learning here. In the particular example of action learning that you're going to hear about in this LAMP Lite byte, we have also integrated place-based learning as well as service learning and experiential study abroad learning and problem-based learning. So brought all together, this forms this intricate network of an action learning course. In the particular example that you'll hear about, the students in this action learning course are also my skiers. So it's a course offered through ENR, Environment and Natural Resources, and the students both study and ski as they're competing around the world. They also integrate curriculum into that experience. Action learning is defined as that learning which employs a diverse group of learners in solving real-world complex and urgent problems. It was first coined by Reg Revens in the 1980s, but many scholars since then have touted the benefits of action learning, noting that the more complex and urgent the problem, the better the learning can be. Of course, it also means that the students go through some pretty emotional experiences, especially when in the case that we were looking at, we were taking on complex environmental problems. We were employing something called systems theory service learning, or STSL, where the complex interdisciplinary environmental problem that we were looking at was the sustainability of Nordic ski racing in the face of climate change. Systems theory was originally proposed in the 1960s, but really the cool thing about it is that it's very cross-disciplinary. So it means that we're taking learners from all of these diverse backgrounds, and we're really celebrating their knowledge and bringing together their expertise and using a non-reductionist kind of holistic mode to put together their findings. So while some of them might study things like chemistry, we will eventually bring them together and knit them together into potential solutions that we might put forward to this problem of climate change. So this approach integrated into pedagogy sort of mirrors the broader recognition that the Earth's most urgent problems can't be solved by one discipline alone. It would be naive and ignorant to think so. So these interdisciplinary approaches are going to be absolutely necessary. So when we bring together systems theory and service learning, it creates this rich environment in which students have these transformative experiences, and we'll hear about some of those here. One such example of a project that really applied this full holistic kind of inquiry was in our first year of teaching the class, where two of our students who were in chemistry and chemical engineering, Ben and Sierra, they decided to analyze the accumulation of fluorocarbons and hydrocarbons, ski wax, in the snow. And they looked at different regions on the course when we skied at the World University Games in Strebské Pleso, Slovakia. And they found out that a lot of the wax accumulated in the start areas. And so they were able to make some really important conclusions from that a lot of times, because start areas have to be flat, they're situated in wetlands or on water bodies. And so that can have some pretty big environmental connotations. So these studies and this overarching study of the class and the use of action learning in the class will appear in a publication in the 27 Action Research Network of the Americas Journal. However, also, it was so amazing. I traveled with 6 of my students to Cartagena, Colombia, where we presented this research on the action learning course, as well as the independent action learning projects in a fantastic venue in Cartagena. So without further ado, I want to share with you the presentation that we showed to those who joined us to hear about action learning in Cartagena. The University of Wyoming Nordic ski team is not your traditional athletic ski team. Instead, we bring together in a beautiful Afghan of synergy, athleticism, scholarship, and environmental and social justice. Athletes on our team bring together both their sexy minds and their fit bodies in order to make positive impacts in the world. They travel throughout the year, all over the nation and throughout the world. And over the last 4 World University Games, the University of Wyoming athletes have been representatives. This year, we traveled to Almaty, Kazakhstan, where we got to experience the full vastness of a world event. We stayed in an athlete village, but at the same time as we were skiing in this incredible venue, we were also integrating scholarship. Over the past 2 World University Games in Slovakia and Kazakhstan, we have designed action learning curriculum to integrate with our travels abroad and our travels throughout the year. So athletes on the UW Nordic ski team simultaneously ski in the highest level of competition, while at the same time they engage in a hybrid interdisciplinary course that employs action learning. Each day, as we drive up the hillside and slowly emerge from the thick smog, I feel like an ancient creature that has evolved to crawl a little further out of the sea onto the land. My ability to leave the sea gives me the upper hand evolutionarily, as I can escape the competition of the writhing waters. In reality, I do have an advantage. I am not trapped in the poisoned air of Almaty, Kazakhstan. Climate change is an incredibly difficult issue to communicate because of its scope and complexity. The image will attempt to draw parallels between the environment and the beauty of our natural form. These images will describe the Earth as an organism that is, in many ways, as fragile and fleeting as our own bodies. The word body is defined as the organized physical substance of an animal or plant, as a group of people or things, and as a mass of matter distinct from the masses. From our individual bodies to the unique structure and orientation of our team within a social society, we fit all definitions of the word. We nurture our bodies to make them healthy and strong, and cultivate a network of relationships that are the nervous system of our team. Not only are we athletes, most of us are academics that have in some way incorporated environmental stewardship into our education. We understand that the Earth as a whole is also a body. Each ecosystem's processes are interwoven with its neighbors, and the water flows like blood around the globe, providing the basic necessities of life. On every scale of the body, terrestrial, team, and individual, we strive to improve.
So there's been a lot of talk lately, you might have heard about the human microbiome, how each of our bodies is home to trillions of microorganisms that affect all sorts of things, from our metabolism to our mental health. But you might not have known that the snow here also has its own microbiome that affects all sorts of things, from the fertility of the soil beneath to the amount of carbon dioxide that's being fixed from the atmosphere or released into the atmosphere. So it could even contribute to global climate change. So with climate change, we know that snow for skiing is becoming less and less reliable, so we have to rely on artificial snow. And we know that artificial snow is a little bit different from natural snow, even though they're both mostly just water and air. So, for my action learning project, I decided to see if there really was a difference in the microbiome between natural snow and artificial snow. So, at one of our race venues where there were trails that had almost entirely natural snow and some trails with almost entirely artificial snow, I grabbed some sterile mason jars and collected snow samples from each type of snow. And this way, I can filter out the water, collect the microbes, extracted the DNA, sequence it, and compare the types of microorganisms in each type of snow to see if there's a difference. For me, the great thing about this action learning project was that I got to actually go out there and experience it. I didn't just read about the snow in a textbook. I could feel it, I could see it. I remember skiing on it, and you would ski between the natural and the artificial snow, and you might be going along just fine, and you hit it, and you just sort of stop, because it was different.
I did my project on mapping snow depth across the United States based off annual precipitation, temperature, and solar irradiance using ArcGIS. What was great about this project is it further allowed me to explore my passions of skiing and climate change and how we convey the information surrounding these issues to the public in a more general sense and in a way that is more digestible to them. The class combined with the research project allowed me to see how we could create a product that inspired people to action based off of what influenced their daily lives. For me, the thing that influences my daily life is the ability to ski. And I was trying to create a connection with people in my community like that and saying, hey, this is what the rest of the world, how the rest of the world sees things. Here's the people who can ski, who can't ski, within the context of the contiguous 48 United States.
Hard to drop off the plateau.
I'm in anthropology and communication, so this was kind of my. But surely the need is the
What year? I would think so.
I'm a senior. I graduated in May.
The data collected did not suggest outdoor recreationists are more likely to believe in climate change. You'll notice these statistics on the right. However, the data did suggest outdoor recreationists are significantly more likely to consider themselves to be conservationist. You'll notice this data here is 67.86% versus 90.33%. Additionally, outdoor recreationists who participate in snow sports, snowboarding, snowshoeing, sledding, skiing, were more likely to consider themselves to be conservationists than were non-snow sport recreationists. Nordic skiers, a specific subgroup of snow sport recreationists, had the highest density of conservationists.
Cyanobacteria in the spring, and down here you have a constant source of hydrogen sulfide gas, so H2S, and they oxidize that and take the electrons, and they move the electrons all the way up their little filament, and they reduce oxygen to water, which is super cool because that's a more energy efficient electron acceptor for them. And so down here you have less H2S being produced, or yeah, you have like H2S being converted, right?
So they're chemotrophs that are using
Yes.
hydrogen sulfide as an energy source, and then they're aerobically respiring.
Yeah, and these are all the same like bacteria, and they're all connected. They just like transport the electrons to a new place,
Right.
which is amazing.
That's actually awesome. Phenomenal.
And how do they think that, like with global warming, with ocean temperatures rising, that will affect like the springtime?
What a wonderful question. Crusts have not been studied very much, but the ones that have been studied, we've found that there are three main types. There's cyanobacterial, moss, and lichen. And the moss is the most moisture-loving crust, and then lichen, and then the cyanobacteria. Typically in these flat sandy areas, you'll have cyanobacteria colonizing first. They're the most hardy, and they prepare the area basically for these other organisms to come in.